What's up guys? Welcome to your first Android tutorial for the new Boston. My name is Travis, and before we get started, well actually what we're going to do in this tutorial is set up the Java JDK, the Java Developer Kit, basically is what that stands for. And before we get into that, I just want to give you guys kind of a little background of who I am, how Bucky contacted me, and all that stuff. My name's Travis, like I said. I had a YouTube channel called Cornboys Android, and then it caught on pretty quickly. It got a few subscribers and all that great stuff. So I started a new YouTube series under my new username, MyBringBack, and basically made those tutorials the same but better quality and better audio and all that good stuff. So anyways, one day I'm chilling at my computer and I get this email from Bucky, and he's like, "Hey man, I really want to teach Android, but I have too much time, or I don't have enough time, basically, and I was wondering if you could set up a series for me for my channel, The New Boston." And I'm like, yeah, I could probably do that. I'm pretty busy. He's like, "If you don't, I'm gonna kill your family." And I'm like, "Whoa, Bucky, you don't have to be so mean. Jeez, man." No, just kidding. Bucky's awesome, and I love what he's doing, giving free education online, and I basically do the same thing with my channel. Not as well, don't have as many tutorials as Bucky, so basically that's how I got contacted. Just contacted me through YouTube. So let's get into it. Let's set up the Java JDK. So I want you guys go into Google and type Java JDK. Hit enter. It'll be the first link from Oracle.com website. Hit this Java SE downloads. And then it'll open up a page like this where you have three options: either the standard Java JDK, the Java JDK plus NetBeans, and the Java JDK plus Java EE. Now we aren't going to really worry about the Java EE or NetBeans because we're going to be using Eclipse, so we don't really need a platform to develop with them because we're going to set that up in the next tutorial. So we're just going to use the standard Java JDK. You want to click that and accept the license agreement. Again, you guys, if you want to read this license agreement, go ahead. It's a good read. It's kind of like the Twilight series. There's happy moments or sad moments, and you just get hooked to this agreement license. So if you guys have some free time, check that out. And then all you're going to do is basically decide which JDK you want. Again, if you're running on Linux, you're going to choose one of these, Solaris and Windows. So basically just click your Windows one. Most likely that's what you guys are developing for. And if you guys are on Mac like I am, you won't actually have to download the Java JDK because basically Apple updates that for you automatically and you won't have to worry about it. But so you can basically skip this tutorial if you guys are running on Mac. Now, just like any other time you download something, you put it in your downloads folder or wherever you guys want to save it and hit OK, and it will download for you. But the problem comes, or the difficult part of the JDK, is setting it up. Now I know Bucky has a video in his Android development, or his Android series, that he's going to start himself, and that'll kind of walk you guys through how to do it if you guys are on Windows. But if not, I want to show you guys another place you can go to get that set up properly. It's just my website, mybringback.com, and then go into the tutorial series right here, and under the Java programming, I know we're doing Android, but it's under the Java programming, the basics. Just click that and it'll be the first tutorial, or the first little link up here called setting up the JDK on your computer. It kind of gives you just a walkthrough of how to do that. I know this tutorial is pretty lame because I can't actually walk you guys through it because again I'm on a Mac, so I won't be able to install the software and follow these instructions. But hopefully you guys can understand everything. I kind of broke it down into bulletin points that are pretty simple for the most part. If you guys still need some help, just leave a comment on this page and I'll check it out and I'll get back to you. But otherwise, just follow along and it'll get set up for you. So thanks again for watching, guys. I know this is the boring stuff, installing the software we're going to need to develop for Android, but soon enough we'll get into the fun stuff, making applications and all that great stuff. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Again, thanks for watching. Have a good one. What's up guys? Welcome to your second Android tutorial. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is, again, some boring stuff like installing software. And the software we're going to install is Eclipse. So go into Google, type in Eclipse or download Eclipse. I'm going to say Eclipse download. And it should be the first link from eclipse.org/downloads. We're going to click on that, and basically what Eclipse is an IDE which will make developing a lot easier for us. It's going to give us some error checking, some shortcuts, just basically some references, so we won't have to remember exactly every line of code that we're going to use, for the most part, by memory. It's going to be a lot simpler for the most part, and that's how we're going to integrate the SDK as well. So here we go. There's a lot of choices for Eclipse that we can download. What we want is the Eclipse IDE for Java developers, and over here is your platform. It should choose it automatically for you, but just in case, you can click Windows or Mac OS. And we're going to download the 32-bit. Even if you have a 64-bit, we're just going to work with 32-bit for now, so it doesn't, whatever. So we'll click that, and here's your download links. Down here you can choose some other links that you may want to download from. That might go a little bit quicker. Or you can just select this this one that they're featuring for the most part. So just click that, and it's a standard download. As you can see right here, I already have it downloaded because it's almost 100 megabytes. I'm actually going to install it for you guys because this computer doesn't have it set up for the most part. So there we go. We install it. I'm going to try and find it, make sure I install it in the right place. Yeah, under my downloads right here. What I'm going to do is now move this whole folder into my hard drive, or for you Windows users, your main hard drive, which is like your C drive. So just move it into that folder, and then we're going to open it up by opening the Eclipse folder and clicking this icon, which basically looks like a croquet ball, or like, I don't know, a third grader's painting or something. So open that up, and that's going to start our Eclipse. Yeah, we know it's from the internet. We're going to show it anyways, or open it anyways, because we're trusting like that. And it's going to start up Eclipse, and here's the workspace that we're going to create. Now basically, I'm using my buddy's computer, which is Jake, but basically we're going to set up a new workspace, and we're also going to do this within our documents for the most part. And what we're going to call this workspace, or we're going to create it by right-clicking or clicking this new folder here and saying the new Boston. Now this is where we're going to, again, create a workspace. And what a workspace is the way to organize all of our Java classes, all our resources that we want to use, and all that good stuff. So we're going to call that the new Boston. Hit open, and now that's where our documents are. Now we're just going to click OK. And also, for you guys wondering, the Java JDK that we installed last time, most likely Eclipse will still work, even if you guys don't download that, because it's going to have some sort of Java on your computer. But you guys wanted to get the most recent one so we could use it for like Google Maps and signing our project and getting it onto the marketplace, which we'll get into later. But now we have Eclipse set up. We exited out of, sorry, I kind of skipped over that, but there's a welcome screen as boring, ugly, and from the 1980s or something. So we exited out of that welcome screen. The X was up here somewhere. So just click that, and then you'll get this, which is basically the layout of Eclipse. And what we're going to do is set up the ADT reference. So what I want you guys to go to, or where I want you guys to go now, is in Google, type in Android ADT. Hit enter, and it'll be this first link from the developerandroid.com page /SDK/Eclipse ADT. Click that, and here's the developer page. It should be on this page. If not, but you guys are on the developer page, you guys can click right here where it says ADT plugin for Eclipse, and scroll down to the point where it says installing the ADT plugin and downloading the ADT plugin. So it gives us a link. What we're going to do is copy this link by Control-C or Command-C, whatever you guys are on, Windows or Mac. And then we're going to copy that link, and what we're going to do now is go back into Eclipse, and under this Windows tab for for if you guys are on Windows, it should be under the Windows tab, and right down here there'll be a or I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. On both of Windows and Mac, it's under the Help tab, and it says install new software. So we're going to click that, and we're going to now paste that link right here and hit add. Now we can add a name to this, so we're going to just add a name, so Android ADT, and again you guys can paste the link right here. That's the location link, and hit OK. And it's basically going to get the developer tools for us that we're going to need for Android programming. So that might take a little bit. We're just going to click this, hit next, and our computer will freeze and probably crash. No, I'm just kidding. So there you go. Now we just hit next again. You guys should have 4 things within there as well, and we have to accept this license agreement for all of these as well. So just do that and read through those again, because it's super entertaining, great stuff within these agreements. Just hilarious, the comedy in there. It's, oh man, it's such a great read. So if you guys want to read that, otherwise just hit accept and finish, and it's going to install the software for us. And then I'll catch up with you guys in the next tutorial where we'll, do some more fun installing software. But soon enough we'll get into the programming and the actual great stuff that we want to do. But basically that's it for this tutorial. I'll see you guys later. Peace. What's up guys? Welcome to your 3rd Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again with me, Travis, and what we're going to do in this tutorial is something super exciting. We're going to install some more software that we're going to need for developing an Android. So I was hoping you guys were looking forward to that. And what we're going to actually install today is the SDK. So we're going to go into Google again and type Android SDK. And basically the SDK has all these methods that we can use for Android programming, and it'll allow us to basically develop for our emulator and for our phone. So we're going to download that so we can actually do some Android programming. And you click the first link. It's the download section from the Android developer page that we've been to before. This time it's under the Android SDK starter package download. We have some choices here. If you guys want, if you're on Windows, you can do the recommended one. If not, you can also download this. It's pretty simple either way. So pick one of your options. Again, for Mac, just click here, and I've already downloaded it. I think it's like 23 megabytes, so it won't take too long, unless if you guys are on dial-up. And if you are, I'm sorry. But what we're going to do now is basically I'm going to go to the place where I downloaded this. It was within, just look at, okay, it's right here within the downloads tab, and it's a zip file, so you're gonna have to extract it. Hopefully you guys have an extractor already. If not, I believe there's WinZip, that's free. Yeah, I don't know all the free ones, but there's definitely some freeware out there to unzip stuff. So I clicked that, and it basically made a folder right here within the same project, or within the same folder or download folder, and you want to drag this over to your main hard drive, for example your Macintosh hard drive or your C drive if you guys are on Windows. And as you can see, it's right here. What we're going to do now is open this up, and if you guys are on Windows, there will be something called the Android, what is it called? The SDK Manager, I believe. It's called the SDK Manager. There's a little green logo of the Android mascot for the most part, that little alien looking dude. You want to click on that. As for Macintosh, what you guys want to do is go into your tools and click Android right here. Now the first time you click it, it might not do anything, so if it doesn't, just exit out of there and click it one more time. It'll load up some stuff, and it loads up this Android SDK AVD Manager. What we're going to do now is set up kind of the platforms that we want to develop for. So we're going to go into Available Packages, and here's our Android repository. We're going to click that triangle to open it up, because if we download all of them, it's going to take a long time. Even downloading one takes a while. So what we're going to do is download for the Android 2.2 platform. which has an API level of 8. Now basically you guys are probably wondering what these platforms are. Every Android phone is running on some sort of Android operating system, and this is the version of that operating system. Kind of the older phones, maybe like the like the Samsungs that haven't got updated, they're going to be running on like the 1.5. Actually, I'm not even sure if anything's running on 1.5 anymore, but basically you can think of it like that. The older phones have these older platforms, unless if they got the updated software. So if you guys have a certain phone, just check what version it is and you guys can develop for that. Now the API level, again, I'm sorry, just briefly since we're on the platform, the 3 and the 3.1 is Honeycomb, which is, I believe that's what's on their tablet. So if you guys have a tablet, you can develop for that. Now the API levels also are important because when we're developing an Android application, you can use certain methods, like I said, from the SDK, but some of those methods require a certain API level. So if you're developing for the API level 8, you can use all of the APIs up to level 8. But if a method requires API level of 10, we can't use it. So most phones, I'd say for the most part, have the 2.2 or the 2.1. We're going to develop for the 2.2 platform, and we're going to use some API levels of 8. So you guys want to probably select this one, because if you select one of these lower ones and we use an API level 8 method, it won't work. So just stick with me here, click that, and then also down here we have the third-party add-ons where we can basically download some APIs. We're going to get the one from Google, so when we get into Google Maps we can use the API from Google. And again, we're going to select API level of 8, which will be for the 2.2 platform, and then we're just going to hit install selected. Again, APIs are basically like some resources that we can use when developing our applications. All we have to do is say accept all, install. It's my favorite wrap. Basically, instead of reading Mother Goose to me, I would, my parents wouldn't read me Mother Goose when they were putting me to bed as a child. They'd just say, accept all, install, what's up gangster? That's the kind of lullabies they'd sing me. So that just is ingrained in my head. That's what you guys want to do when you're installing software. And now this is going to take a while. Sorry, I'm kind of weird. But this is going to take a while to install those platforms and those packages that we can use. So I'm just going to talk briefly of how I'm going to teach and basically some stuff about Android and what we're going to get into for the most part. Now, the way I like to teach, or the way I like to learn for the most part, is I like seeing kind of an overview of how things work. I don't really care for the most part of every detail, but in the beginning at least. So basically what I'm going to do, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. What I'm going to do is kind of show you guys some of the basics of Android, but we're going to move kind of fast for the first 20 tutorials so you guys kind of see how everything works. You might not realize everything that's going on, but trust me, you'll learn a lot throughout those tutorials. Not like every detail, but after the 20th tutorial we'll kind of go back and redo some of those things that we've done just a little bit differently and introduce some new stuff so that older stuff makes sense and you guys realize what's going on. I don't know if that description made sense, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go quickly, and then we're going to backtrack a little bit and cover some of the stuff that we did, and then move forward as well. I won't get into every detail right at the beginning, so if you guys don't like that, I'm sorry, but I will cover every detail just within time. So stick with the series, and it will pay off. I promise you guys, you'll understand Android for the most part after this whole series is done. So just to give you guys an introduction of how I'm going to teach, there it is. And also, Android is so big. There's so many different programming languages you can use with it, but it's mainly, the main programming language is Java. That's basically how we're going to set up our interface, or our navigation, all that stuff. But you can also use C++, you can also use OpenGL ES, you can use MySQLite, you can what else? XML. We're going to get into XML. That's easy for the most part. But there's so many programming languages. You can use HTML5 as well when you're developing your application. So it's going to be hard covering all those topics and pretty much everything. So I'm just going to stick with okay, so this got done installing, so we're just going to hit OK. I'm just going to, cover as much as I can within 200 tutorials, and hopefully you guys will be happy with that. If not, you guys can check out my bring back, and I'll do some additional tutorials on things that you guys request. So there we go. We have our stuff installed, and now when we say installed packages, we can see some of the options that we downloaded. The other thing we're going to do real quickly is set up the emulator. So we're going to say virtual devices up here and hit new, and we're going to call this one DroidX. Again, this will have to be one word. It can't be two words, just one word. So we're going to have no spaces. And what's our target going to be developing for? We're going to have it developed for the 2.2 platform. And this size is basically a virtual SD card. We're going to say something like 100 megabytes, which is kind of overkill, but we're going to go with it. And then just hit Create AVD Manager. Whoops. And hit OK, and we're done for this tutorial anyways. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 4th Android tutorial for the new Boston, again with me, Travis. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is basically set up a package, set up a project that we're going to work with from here on out. So before we can set up a project, you guys want to go into set up your preferences for the most part and locate the SDK that we downloaded in the last tutorial. Now if you're running on Windows, you want to go up to the Windows tab. That's where I got confused in that other tutorial. And under the Windows tab there should be something called Preferences right down here. But on a Mac computer you want to go under the Eclipse tab, and the Preferences is right here. So you click that, and then you go to this folder called Android that's now located, or now you're welcome. Android SDK, you're welcome. Proceed. Alright, computer's frozen. Awesome. So, okay, no it's not. But okay, so sorry for losing focus there. Go into this Android tab, or just click on the Android, and all sorts of errors are coming up. And now what we want to do is locate the SDK folder that we set up. So we're going to hit Browse, and again I told you guys to set it up in your hard drive, so it's pretty easy to find. So just go to your C drive or your main hard drive and look for the Android SDK folder right here. Just click on this folder. You don't want to go into anything in here. Just click on the whole folder, hit open, and it'll load or hit apply, and then it'll load some of our platforms that we downloaded. Again, we downloaded the 2.2 and the Google Maps. So we want to select 2.2 because that's what we're going to start with. Hit apply or hit OK, and now what we can do is right click within our Package Explorer. Now if you guys exited out of this Package Explorer because you're trying to clean up and now you're like, oh crap, we needed that, it's pretty easy to get back. Down in this bottom left corner you click, and right here is Package Explorer, and then we can just drag and drop this into our workspace. And again, right click, go to New, and you'll either have an Android project right here. If not, that's okay. I don't, obviously. So we're going to go to Other, and we're going to go to this Android folder and set up an Android project like that. Now this is the basic setup for setting up a new project. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it the New Boston. And we also need to select our build target. And our build target is again what platform we're developing for. We're going to develop for the 2.2. And here's some other things that we need to define. Now we have an application name. This is what's going to appear on the user's end when they're scrolling through all their applications. This is the name of our application. So we're going to leave that as the New Boston. If you guys want to change that, that's okay. The package name, basically we want this to be unique, because when we put our application on the marketplace, if there's another app that has this package name, you won't be able to upload it. So we're going to make it unique. In generally you want two identifiers, so you can say like t.t, and that'd be two identifiers for the most part. But generally what people do to make sure their application's unique is if they have a website, they do it backwards, like com.thenewboston.travis, and that's just going to be our package name. Hopefully that's unique enough for the marketplace. Again, you need two identifiers, and you do that by hitting the period to create a new identifier for the most part. Now this create activity, this is basically the activity or the class that's going to start when our emulator or when our application launches. So we're going to call this starting point, like that. One word. If you guys have two words, it's going to give you an error and you won't be able to finish. So make sure it's one word. We're going to call this activity starting point. And we're just going to hit finish, and it's going to set up our project for us. As you can see right here, it gives us an error because it's still building the project. It takes a little bit. Alright, so there we go. We have our project set up, and I'm going to kind of define what this project holds and how to add folders to it in the next tutorial. So hopefully you guys followed along and understood how to establish a new project, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Peace. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 5th Android tutorial for the new Boston. What I'm going to do in this tutorial is kind of give you guys an overview of what this package holds and what everything means. But basically, before we do that, I want you guys to go to the Window tab and then Android SDK AVD Manager. Click on our device and hit Start. And probably you want to scale the size down because a lot of times it's pretty big. So I like to put 6 for the screen size, and that's going to be about 46% of what normally would launch. And hit OK or Start. And there we go, our emulator's started now. Now I'm going to talk through, like I said, basically this package, and we're going to add a couple additional folders for developing for Android. Now the first folder that you guys see is SRC, standing for source, and this is the code of all of our Java that we're going to develop. And here's our package name that we set up. And within our package name, here's our Java class called starting point. Now we can add additional Java classes within here, or activities that we're going to use. So that, just think of the source as where we're going to keep all of our Java. Anytime we're working with the source, it's going to be Java. Now the Gen folder, again, you see our package name within there, and within there we have a Java, again, a code called R. And this is basically our resources. We aren't going to do anything with this ever because basically it generates itself automatically. If you open that up, it kind of shows some resources that set up. It's kind of a reference point, and it's nice that Android will basically generate that for us. So make sure you never mess around with that one. And then the Android 2.2, this is where all the magic is. This is where the power is for the most part. This is our platform. Again, you guys can see the jar. There's an Android jar in there, and basically this holds a ton of different packages. A ton of different packages, and within those packages they have classes, and within those classes they have methods. So we can use some methods from this package, these packages as well. So that's a ton of power. As you can see, there's a ton of different packages. I know I said a ton like a ton of times, but yeah, there's a lot in there. Basically just like our package, except they have a lot more classes and a lot more methods within those classes than what we have set up. So basically that's where the Android SDK comes in handy, and we need it because of all the methods. The assets folder we'll get into later within the series. Basically you can keep some resources in there and use the assets decoder for the most part and get those resources. But mainly what we're going to do, or at least start out with, for when we're using resources like images and layouts and all that good stuff, we're going to do that within our resource folder right here. And as you can see, there's 3 drawables. This is where we're going to save some of our images, and this is where we're going to, yeah, pretty much just our images. As you can see, there's 3 different folders. You're probably wondering, why are there 3 different folders? Well, Android phones, some have a pretty good density or pretty good resolution to them, some don't. So basically what you can do is, if you have an image that you're going to use for a game or an app, basically you can save a high resolution or a high density image within this high density pixel, for the most part, folder, and then you can have that same image, the same name, but of a lower resolution that you guys have set up within like the low resolution drawable, and also that stands for medium. So again, you can have the same name, but if you create 3 different images that have different resolutions, you can save them within the appropriate folder, and then when you reference those images in Java, basically the SDK is going to know which one of those images should be run on the phone for, you know, optimization for the most part. So that's pretty cool, and that's why they have 3 different drawable folders. Now our layout folder, this is going to be our XML, basically our layout. This we're going to get into the XML for the most part. If you double click on this main one, it has it set up for us already. This is a main XML called, and all it is hello world starting point. They did define that for us already, and you know, that's basically where we're going to set up our layouts in XML. Now the values tab, basically you can keep values in other references such as strings, and then you can reference those strings within your layouts or within, you know, your Java as well. So again, that's just for values. What we're gonna do quickly, I'm gonna add 2 new folders. We're gonna go right click on a resource folder right there and go new folder, and we're gonna type this or spell this folder RAW for RAR, our RAR folder, and we're also gonna select this package, make sure it's in the right place, and make sure it's the resources, and all lowercase RAR, hit finish, and this is where we're gonna save some sounds for our application. So that's going to be useful. We're also going to create 1 new folder, and we're going to call this one layout -sign land. Hit OK. Basically, that is going to be for when our phone is tilted on its side. If we want to have an alternative layout, we can put that there. We'll get into that later, but I just wanted you guys to have those folders set up. Now the last thing that we're going to define, or I'm going to kind of describe for the most part, is the Android manifest. This is where everything for the most part comes together. If you guys click on it and go down here on the right side, you can go into the actual XML code. It's a little bit easier for me to explain. Basically, it resources everything that we have, like the version or the API level, the application, and the application icon, which is set to a default that they imported for us, as you can see within the drawable folder. Our application name that we set up when we create our project, our starting point class, our activity for the most part. That's the activity bracket. So this is for one activity called starting point that is within our application. Basically it, and if you go over here, this activity is our launcher item, so when our activity starts, it's going to look for the launcher item and start this activity starting point. So basically the manifest pulls everything together and adds your resources for all your different activities, and you can set up some sweet stuff within here as well. Now if your application needs to access the internet, or you know, you want to pull some data from a text message that someone gets and then you post it on their Facebook wall without them knowing, basically you're going to use permissions. You need to get permissions, like I want to use the permission of the internet, and you would define those permissions within the manifest, and then when someone downloads your application off the marketplace, they're going to see which permissions your app needs, such as, oh, it needs the internet, oh, it needs you know, a receiver of some sort, oh, it needs to access my camera, what is this application doing? Basically they're going to see that, and then if they want to download it they can, but that's basically the only place that they're going to see what permissions we're going to use. We're going to do that within the XML, or within the manifest. So basically that's kind of an overview. Only other thing I want you guys to do real quick is just right click on your whole package, go to run as Android application, and that's going to load up on our emulator. Again, what's going to happen, I'm just going to briefly talk through everything that's happening. As it's loading, or it's installing onto our emulator, it's looking for the launcher item, like I said, within the manifest. Then it calls this starting point class, and then it will call this starting point class that we set up right here, which is an activity class, and within the activity it sets the content view to r.layout.main. I know this is a quick overview, but r.layout.main, which R stands for our resource folder, then our layout folder, and then our main XML again, which looks like this. So it's going to set the content view to that, and that's basically kind of a quick overview of how the activity works for the most part, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. What's up guys, welcome to your 6th Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again with me, Travis. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is install some new software that we can use for I'm just kidding. We're getting into the XML and XML programming so we can set up some custom views and some custom layouts. So I want you guys to open up your layout folder and click on this main XML, and you guys will get something like this. Now you can switch between the graphical layout, which is this, and the coding, which is this, by these two tabs down here, graphical layout and main.xml. Basically all I'm going to do in this tutorial is describe what's going on and teach you guys a little bit about XML. It's pretty simple language for the most part, but you know, it might be confusing right at the beginning. You guys will pick this up quickly, I'm almost positive. Now the first line of code you see isn't that important, because anytime we set up a new layout, it's going to give us this code as well. I mean, it is important, but you guys won't have to remember typing this out every time, because it's going to define it for us. And basically you need to have that as your first line of code for the most part. And then what we do is we set up a linear layout, which starts here and gives some attributes to the linear layout, and it ends here. Basically what a linear layout is going to do is it's going to hold some other items, such as a text, and it's going to kind of define basically the layout of those items to a sense. So it's going to kind of categorize them and do all that stuff. Let's see here. Oh, got a new whatever. Alright, so what we're going to do is basically kind of define this linear layout, and or I'm going to describe everything that's going on within the attributes of this linear layout. Now we have this reference basically, and that's all it is. You guys don't, again, you don't have to really remember that, because when we set up a new layout, Eclipse will set up this reference for us. So that's nice. Nice and pretty for new programmers, where you guys don't have to remember the actual file path and type that out each time. And then the next thing that we have is the orientation of our linear layout, which is set to vertical. I was messing around with it, and just so that's why it was changed. And basically what that is going to do is it's going to set all the items within the linear layout vertically. So for example, if we copy this text view, or this text for the most part, and paste it twice, since I cut it instead of copied it. So now we have two text, and we go into a graphical layout. They're placed vertically from top to bottom. That's just how our layout is going to work. Again, we can also set this horizontally, as well as you guys just saw. So I'm going to do that real quickly by typing horizontal and hit save, go to graphical layout, and man, I messed this up. Alright, but you guys should have fill parent. Again, I was playing around with this as well, but just kind of wanted to show you guys what is going on, so that's why I'm doing it this way. Save that, and then we go into a graphical layout, and you're like, where's that other text view? And basically what's happening is being pushed off the screen right here. And I'll explain why that's happening in a second. As you guys just saw, I kind of changed the code, but that's how you guys should have your setup, because you wouldn't have that changed code. So basically now we're also adding two more attributes to this layout. Basically we're setting the parameters of how big this layout is. And what the parameters are, well, the width is going to fill the parent, so it's going to take everything that's available for the width, so the whole screen's width for the most part. And same with the height, it's going to take all the height that is available to it, and it's going to set that as its basically that's its attributes, or its parameters for the most part. So there you go, you have your linear layout set up, taking the whole screen and set to a horizontal orientation. Now within here we have our text view, which is basically just the text, and again pretty much the same line of codes for these first two. Layout width, we have that fill parent, and as you saw, I changed this to something like wrap content is the other option you can do. And basically this is going to wrap the content of the text, whatever text we have available. So then now if we switch to graphical layout, you can see the pretty much the parameters of this text view is wrapping the content of the text. So those are your two options for the most part that you can use. You can also use, pixels if you want, and we'll get into that later, but basically I want you guys to remember fill parent and wrap content. And same with the height, it's wrapping the content. Now the text says @string hello, and you're like, no it doesn't, it says hello world starting point. Now basically what's happening is this is using a reference. Anytime you see an @ within the XML, it's using a reference. So it's referencing the string hello, and that string is located within our values. So we have this values and we have this string. So we're going to say strings, and there's a string called hello. So it's using this reference, and then this is the name of the reference, but it's displaying the value of the reference. So for example, we can set up a new string by clicking add string, and then we can set up a name called ref for reference and say this is a reference, and save it, and then go back into our XML, and we can also just do something like @string ref, and then we go over into our graphical layout. It says this is a reference, just that new string we set up. The alternative is you can also just type. So you can just type whatever you want without using the @ symbol, as long as it's within quotations, and there you go. You can just display your type. Now the good thing about the references, or for strings, is basically if you're working for a boss that keeps changing his mind on the title of whatever the application or whatever, if you guys have a title within your app, keeps changing the name, instead of looking through all this code for where you typed the title, you can just refer or set up a title, a reference, and then just go into your string under the values and look for that title and change the value there. So that's kind of the benefit, but hopefully you guys understand a little bit about the layout. Oh, one other thing. There's two ways to kind of close your statements. You can see them both here. Basically, we're setting up our linear layout here, and it's closing down here. Now, basically, anytime you see a /, that's when it's closing. So, example, you can use I just kind of set up two different text views and their closing statements. So we have our text view, and we set up some attributes, and then we use the less than sign, and then we use a greater than sign / text view, and then less than sign to close it. Or if you don't want to type this out every time, you can just do / less than sign for your text. So there you guys go. Quick overview for XML. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.